Hello everyone and welcome to a new video from Via Doctis. Today's video is entirely dedicated to our natural satellite, the Moon. Its prominence in the sky and its regular cycle of phases have made it a significant cultural influence for humans since ancient times, impacting language, calendars, art, and mythology. Its gravitational influence has always dominated our lives, causing tides and modifying the length of the Earth's day. The Moon is the brightest object in the sky after the Sun, although its surface is actually much darker than it appears at night, with a reflectivity similar to that of coal. The Moon is exceptionally large compared to its planet. It has an equatorial diameter of 2,160 miles, making it the fifth largest satellite in the solar system. It has a quarter of Earth's diameter, making it the largest satellite in the solar system in relation to the size of its host planet. This record was previously held by Charon, the moon of Pluto, which has a diameter of 751 miles, a little more than half of Pluto's 1,473 miles. As you all know, Pluto is no longer considered a planet in our solar system, having been reclassified as a dwarf planet in the Kuiper Belt. Due to its mass relative to Earth, we can understand why the Moon's gravity affects so many factors on our planet. For instance, if we compare the masses of the largest moons in our solar system relative to their planets, we see that Ganymede, the largest moon in the solar system, has a mass 12,500 times smaller than Jupiter's, and the mass of Titan, the second largest moon, is 4,700 times smaller than Saturn's mass. In contrast, the Moon's mass is only 81 times smaller than Earth's mass, which is why some scientists classify the Earth-Moon system as a binary planet due to the disproportionate size of the satellite in relation to the planet. This term may not be very precise. The Moon does not revolve around the Earth as many believe. Instead, the Earth and the Moon revolve around the barycenter of the Earth-Moon system, the common center of mass, located about 1,056 miles below the Earth's surface, approximately a quarter of the Earth's radius. Therefore, it is more accurate to call them a planet-satellite system rather than a binary planet. For example, in the case of the Pluto-Charon system, its barycenter is located outside both bodies, so it would be more correct to consider it a binary system. As the Earth revolves around the center of gravity of the Earth-Moon system, a force appears that tries to deform it, giving it an egg-like appearance, as shown in this image. This phenomenon, called the gravitational gradient, is responsible for the tides. Because the Earth is a solid and rocky planet, the deformation affects its oceans and atmosphere much more, causing them to rise and fall twice a day, rising at the points closest to and farthest from the Moon. Although it seems that the Moon is close to the Earth, it is not as close as it appears. In fact, it is moving away from the Earth at an average rate of 1.5 inches per year. In this scale image, you can see the real distance between the Moon and the Earth, known in astronomy as a lunar distance, which averages 238,855 miles, varying along its orbit. We know this distance precisely, thanks to high-precision measurements of the time it takes for light to travel between lidar stations on Earth, and the retroreflectors placed on the Moon by astronauts from the Apollo 11, 14, and 15 missions as part of the LR-3 experiment. But really, we have known the approximate distance between the Earth and the Moon for much longer. The first person to measure this distance was the astronomer and geographer Hipparchus in 150 BC. Yes, you heard right. We have known the approximate distance between the Earth and the Moon for more than 2,000 years. To obtain this data, Hipparchus used the Earth's diameter calculated by Eratosthenes 100 years earlier, which led him to determine a distance of 216,227 miles. He made this calculation using the curvature of the shadow that the Earth projects onto the Moon during a lunar eclipse, a method devised by Aristarchus of Samos. Although the small error is notable, considering the limitations of the time, his calculations were only about 22,370 miles off the real figure, which represents a margin of error of just over 10%. As you can see, the moon has always been present in the minds of humanity, although literally, humanity has only been present on it on a few occasions. Only 12 people, all Americans, have ever walked on the moon. From the first astronaut to step on it, Neil Armstrong in 1969, on the Apollo 11 mission, to the last man to walk on it, Gene Cernan in 1972 on the Apollo 17 mission. An incredible human odyssey on the lunar surface ended up leaving 374,785 pounds of artificial objects on its desolate surface, while only 842 pounds of lunar rocks returned to Earth between the American Apollo missions and Soviet Luna missions. Aside from the various lunar modules and scientific equipment, the 12 humans who stepped on the moon during the Apollo missions left various personal and commemorative objects, which we find at least curious. These include the silicon disc with messages of goodwill from Nixon, Kennedy, and Eisenhower, as well as other leaders of 73 countries, left on the moon by the Apollo 11 astronauts, the golf balls with which Alan Shepard practiced during the Apollo 14 expedition, and the family portrait of astronaut Charles Duke. In addition, there are other items like the small aluminum sculpture of an astronaut in a spacesuit known as The Fallen Astronaut, a work by Belgian artist Paul van Hooijdonk. He met astronaut David Scott at a dinner, where Scott asked him to create a small statuette to honor his fallen comrades. In 1971, it was taken to the moon by the crew of Apollo 15, along with a commemorative plaque that lists the names of 8 astronauts and 6 cosmonauts who died in space missions or during training, making it the only work of art made with the purpose of remaining on the moon. On its barren and arid surface, we can also find 6 American flags that have probably completely lost their color after more than 40 years under solar radiation. Humans have also left 3 NASA lunar rovers on its surface, the lunar vehicles that allowed the astronauts of the last 3 Apollo missions to cover notable distances, while the pioneers of Apollo 11 and 12 had to move on foot, and those of Apollo 14 had to transport their instruments in a small cart. These space exploration vehicles were designed to move across the surface of the moon by the Boeing company, which signed a contract for the development and delivery of 4 vehicles. Ultimately, only 3 were sent to the moon, accompanying the Apollo 15, 16, and 17 missions. The maximum speed of these vehicles was 8.7 miles per hour, although astronauts John Young and Charles Duke of Apollo 16 set a lunar speed record by reaching 10.6 miles per hour with their rover while rolling downhill on their return trip to the lunar module. In addition, among the notable objects that humanity has left on our satellite, we must not forget the falcon feather and the hammer used by Commander David Scott on the Apollo 15 mission to demonstrate Galileo's assertion that the acceleration experienced by an object due to gravity does not depend on its mass, density, composition, or shape. This fact was demonstrated on the moon, which lacks an atmosphere that would slow down the feather. For all these reasons, and due to the numerous traces of historical importance on the surface of the moon, the Historical Resources Commission of the State of California has requested that the Apollo 11 landing site be considered a protected space due to its historical interest. This includes not only the place where the footprints of Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin still remain, but also all the objects left there by the astronauts. With numerous countries and private entities planning missions to the moon, NASA fears that some of these attempts could damage the historical objects left behind by the astronauts of the Apollo missions and the Ranger program. To mitigate this, NASA has requested that future landing sites be at least 1.2 miles away from the Apollo landing sites and 0.3 miles from the 5 Ranger crash sites. The goal is to avoid accidental collisions or covering these relics with lunar dust, which is highly abrasive. Special care has been requested for the landing points of Apollo 11 and 17, the first and last moon missions. It is requested that future robots sent to the moon do not approach closer than 246 feet from Apollo 11 and 738 feet from Apollo 17 to avoid damaging the equipment or erasing the footprints of the astronauts, in addition to covering the laser reflectors with dust. These reflectors are still used today to measure the distance between the Earth and the Moon. However, it is not clear what condition many of these objects, which have been on the Moon for more than 4 decades, are in. The Moon's extreme environment with large temperature changes, exposure to solar radiation, and impacts of micrometeorites could have damaged many of these objects. Therefore, scientists find it very interesting to obtain images of these objects in their current state, as this could provide valuable information for building structures that can survive on the Moon in future colonies. And that's where our video today from Via Doctis ends. If you liked the video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for watching. See you in the next one.